Today on the MrMaple Show podcast, it's the October Collector's Corner with Sean and Brian.
Welcome, Maple lovers and Maple family. We are back again for another Collector's Corner. We're here in October. How'd it get to be October already, Brian?
Man, this year is flying by. I mean, we've been so busy here at the farm. It's like the days just kind of bleed together. It's hard to keep up with the time. But, things have been going great here at the farm lately. We appreciate you guys tuning in today here at the MrMaple Show podcast. We got another Collector's Corner we're going to do for you guys today. Just, me and Sean, a couple of plant collectors, and we like to talk about what's interesting to us, and hopefully you guys find that interesting on your end and bring some attention to some of these plants you may have not heard of, or maybe you have them already and maybe you want to hype them up a little bit too, right? I mean, I'm all about getting out in the garden and just kind of like seeing what's performing this time of the year and kind of thinking about fall coming very soon, and I'm excited about it.
And, let's go ahead and get out of the way. We always have to like, subscribe, share, check out MrMaple.com 7 days a week. We have something coming out. And always be sure to check out MrMaple.com, where we have over 2,000. I think that's what we say 1,500
for like 10 years, right?
Right. But now they're saying, close to 2,000 different cultivars. So check out MrMaple.com. Great knowledge on there and some great plants. And that's what gives us the opportunity to talk about plants and talk to you people about what we have going on for Collector's Corner.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Collector's Corner is just a unique way for us to discuss a kind of a topic and a list of plants that, we carry here at MrMaple. And even though some of these may be out of stock, but you can always sign up to be notified when these come back into stock. I know sometimes when we do these podcasts, people are looking to purchase the plants we're talking about. Now, we're always working diligently to get these back in stock. So if there's one here that we talk about today, go to MrMaple.com and sign up to be notified. That way, when it comes back in stock, you guys get an email. You can get one of these plants. But, man, I think we should just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
This is cool, man. I like this list. Me and Sean kind of worked on different categories to talk about different kinds of plants we're interested in right now. And being that we're getting close to fall, it kind of made me think about, what are those like crucial like 4-season maples, that like give you something every step of the way throughout the year and are consistent with it. And I love that about Japanese maple. There's so many varieties, and this kind of gets me diving into the coral bark varieties.
Exactly.
When it comes to winter interest, there's hardly anything that is more vibrant, especially on a deciduous plant. You know what I mean?
So, I'll just jump in and go with mine. I had to choose Baton Rouge. Ooh. Man, to me, there's so many, talking about those coral bark maples. And, a lot of times people's mind immediately goes to Sengokaku. I mean, it's like the OG.
Right.
It's a wonderful, Acer palmatum. It's a wonderful tree. But, I also get excited. Matt and Tim like to talk about, they use superpowers as a way to describe how certain plants have qualities, man. And when you get into that, bringing up Baton Rouge, it has that Louisiana name, but it was found in Texas. Yeah. It comes from Texas. Man, it's got that heat tolerance superpower. And to me, that just excites me. So you get that coral bark color that's heat sensitive, or not heat sensitive, but heat tolerant.
Right.
And it's also, its growth habit is so different than a lot of the other coral barks. And so Baton Rouge, just the growth habit excites me. and the fact that it's got superpowers, man, I mean, it's just a great tree.
Yeah, I mean, every time we have a nice set of Baton Rouge out in the greenhouses somewhere, like they just immediately catch your attention. There's something different about that cultivar. I love that about it. Super bright bark, very, very reminiscent of that like Sangokaku, you know, that really bright coral color. But some of the other differences I'll highlight on Baton Rouge is you get a little bit different fall color mix in there too, because Sangokaku is typically going to go just a straight yellow,
right,
with that coral bark kind of playing off that color, where Baton Rouge can get some yellows, but then it gets little splotches of reds and little purples and things like that. So you get a little bit different fall color on it. Really, really cool, man. I love Baton Rouge, especially thinking about those hotter zones. One that I haven't had a chance to grow yet, and I'm thinking about it. I was like, man, I should have tried this one back when I was in Oklahoma.
Right.
Definitely one that would be great for like a hotter zone like that where you got a lot of high heat. Because if that thing can handle some Texas heat, yeah, that'd be all right in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
So, but very cool, man. It kind of leads me into my coral bark selection here. I went with Wildfire. And for me, Wildfire, like, I love how the name, when a good name like plays into what the tree really does. And kind of what made me put this on my list today was in my garden right now, I have a Wildfire, nice, probably around 6 feet tall, starting to fill out nice. But right now, this time of the year, it's very odd. It's got a little bit of early fall color starting on it, right? Some yellow blushes and some little pink and orange blushes, but yet it's still got some new growth happening.
Oh, that's awesome.
On the same, so like right now, it literally does look like a wildfire. There's all these different colors, yellows, oranges, these little pinks and reds popping off of that new growth. Really, really cool. And that bark on it too. I like how in the winter, it's like the tree knows that, you know, this is the time of year where I need to step up my game, right? And the coral barks do it so well. They're like, all right, you think I'm done, you know, with that fall finale? No. I got something left. Let me peek up this color on the bark, because it kind of fades in the summer. You know, you kind of get some, kind of goes to a lighter faded color, but then the winter really picks that up and makes that color stand out even more. So I love that about Wildfire, one of my favorite coral bark varieties. So we got two top notch. I mean, Baton Rouge and Wildfire.
Well, I won't lie. You presented your list to me before I filled it out, and I saw Wildfire, and there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I can't pick Wildfire. so I mean, full 100, I can't pick Wildfire. But man, I mean, it's just really cool because, you know, like a lot of people sometimes with these coral barks are like, well, I just don't see, you know, about this color, you know, I have it out in my landscape. Well, it really is that winter interest with, as the tree starts to go into dormancy, starts to lose that, the chlorophyll. Well, that's also with the thinner cambium layer. As that chlorophyll leaves the plant, you start to get those coral colors. Yeah. And you talk about Wildfire, you talk about the fire with, you know, still got some summer flush, but some of it's starting to go into that fire action. But that coral bark, man, it's not like, you know, some of these where when it goes to that coral color, you've got the whole thing. The Wildfire, you've got a different tone of coral all the way up.
Right. It's a nice mix of different colors. I love that about it. You know, the newer branches are a darker red. The older branches are a little bit of an orange. And then you lower you get to kind of a yellow. So and if you think about a fire, that's kind of how that works. You see a lot of those same colors in a fire with those oranges and reds and yellows. So it definitely plays into that name. I love when you have just a perfect name for a tree. And I think that one hits it perfectly. Let's move on to our next category, man. We got an underrated fall color maple is the next on the list. You know, there's so many. It's hard to, I mean, how do we narrow it down to one, Sean, right? I mean, I could probably give you 20 of them here, but.
Well, that's what I say. I kind of laughed when I saw underrated fall color, and I'm like, when it comes to a Japanese maple, are there any that are truly, I mean, they're all like that's spring and fall. That's that's their, you know, spring is the opening of the show and fall is the encore, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the default is you can always go, hey, you know, with a Japanese maple, it's got great spring color and great fall color. right. I mean, but I went with Acer palmatum, Ukigumo. Now, I know I kind of hype on this a lot, but I think it's such an important thing to remember because I think as a collector, you're always looking for certain characteristics. And there may be a cultivar out there that, it is kind of this idea of it, but maybe doesn't always come into true fruition, especially with like Ukigumo. It could be very conditional in that spring. You can get some beautiful white colors of variegation on that. But some years you may be a little hit and miss on that. But
conditional.
But again, and this is what I think makes it underrated for me is like, even if you miss on the floating cloud, the pure white, right? You're still going to get a beautiful golden orange fall color consistently every year on this plant. And I love that because you can play off of those fall colors and pairings and things like that in your garden. And so even though your spring interest might be a little bit conditional and hit and miss, you can always count on that fall color to contrast with what you planted it nearby.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's really cool about it is that, different times of the year, there are certain things we get stuff. Well, why isn't my tree doing this? Or why is my tree acting this way? There's a lot of different things from year to year that can be conditional that can affect it. But when you've got that guaranteed fall explosion, man, like, so, and that's just the thing with some cultivars, depending on the season, that's what's fun about collecting them is that, well, okay, I've got like your first one, winter, like you can set it up that you always have something happening. And that's what's fun about Japanese maples. You could always have something happening.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm curious, man, what you got on your list, Sean?
So this one, underrated or, but like that, man, I had to go with my red dragon. My red dragon, man, like, everyone thinks about that red that comes out into the in the spring, just like, the spring. But man, I tell you what, man, people talk about, especially in the lace leaf world, man, to me, and it may just be the condition I have it where I have it located, but man, every year, red dragon, when it goes back, so it comes out with that leaf, that kind of pink and red, and then gets in the summer, and then kind of gets into that, darker and kind of going green. But man, once now, like back into fall, man, the intense red, to me, the red fall on a red dragon can compete with almost any red fall color out there.
No, that's a great pick, man. I think, the lace leaves don't get enough love, when it comes to, the fall color. I think sometimes, we're always looking for something a little more fancy, something a little more wild, but I love red dragon for a lot of reasons, and the great fall color. I think it's so crucial to kind of highlight that because red dragon's a smaller lace leaf. So you can fit it in a lot of different spaces, which I think is cool. You can utilize that red fall color and red spring interest in smaller spaces and little splashes of red colors in your garden. And then the structure too, like highlighting that, so you get that grand finale in the fall color, and then you start to see that structure underneath all those leaves. It's wild, man. I love a good weeping lace leaf Japanese maple. Like some of the coolest pictures, I've ever seen of like Japanese maples is typically of like a lace leaf.
Right.
They're like, there's famous photos of like ornatum in these gardens that just look insane. I love a good lace leaf, and red dragon, I think with that crazy red fall color, great choice, man.
Now this next category, I love it. Bark interest. And we kind of hit on that with the first one with the coral barks, but there's so many maples out there that have bark interest. And I think sometimes, as collectors, we're so fixated on the foliage.
Right.
We're so fixated on the foliage that sometimes like we kind of forget there's more to it than just that. And that there's, so that bark interest, I think great category. What'd you go with?
I had to go with one that has been, pretty high on my list for a while. I got an opportunity to get a good size one back in my Oklahoma garden and grew this in Oklahoma. So a great plant, great experience with it. I went with Acer palmatum, Allen's Gold. This is a great pine bark Japanese maple, which is such an interesting concept because, typically you're thinking of colors when you're thinking of like winter interest or bark interest maple, but we're getting into like texture
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like these pine barks and cork barks, they create such a unique texture on that bark.
Well, I have to ask: is this going to be one of your bonsais because of that?
Well,
barking interest,
absolutely, dude. That is one on my list for sure. I think I need to put it, into gear where I get me a nice Allen's Gold and try my hand at bonsai with it. I've got probably around 20 different varieties of stuff that I'm working on with bonsai. So I love that, and I think a cork bark like that would just be ideal. You know, there's so many great pictures out there of different bonsai with bark interests like that. So certainly high on my list for the landscape. You know, a lot of times when it comes to bark interest, again, I think we're not really thinking about that in the landscape as much, but it really plays a key factor when you're, placing different Japanese maples around each other, or you're looking for plants to accent.
So I had to go with, and some people will be like, bark interest on this tree,
right?
But I had to go with Shishi Shigeru. And to me, just the green color that Shishi puts off is such a rich, dark green that it's unlike any other of the greens out there. But even when a Shishi is small, that dark green bark adds something to it. But then if you ever get the opportunity to go to a garden that has a really nice established Shishi Shigeru, one that has a little age on it, you see it gets this like stripation to it. Like I guess that's the right word. Like, but there's like you kind of get this ring growth, and then you get these kind of like white stripes kind of going on into it. And every time I see that, I'm like, wow. The bark itself is just as interesting as the tight layered leaves, as even the small leaves, even the crinkling. But like to me, especially for like when talking about bark interest, man, I think Shishi Shigeru really does have a bark interest that a lot of times we just overlook because we're looking at all the other variants or all the other characteristics of the tree.
Yeah, I mean, that's a solid pick, man. I mean, yeah, Shishi, I mean, everybody loves the lion head maples out there. I mean, there's so many different varieties, but I think, with Shishi Shigeru, it's like you don't think about the bark interest, but one of the things that like popped in my head is you really notice it more when you get into the fall color, because now you have the fall color leaf contrasting against that green bark.
Yeah, you got that intense dark green bark, but then you got that orange going on.
Right.
That just
it's such a nice contrast within the self, within the plant itself, and so. Great choice, man. I think, I love bark interest when it comes to maples because there's so much options out there. If you're looking for coral, if you're looking for green, there's a yellow with bihu, like there's so many great options out there, so we always joke around. We say, well, there's a maple for everybody. And it's absolutely true because there's so much variety that's been introduced into the trades. I think, if you have a very specific thing that you're trying to add, most of the time you'll be able to find a plant that meets kind of that category.
So our next category is, which I think is great. We're here in October. We're, feeling that those cool nights and those cool mornings.
Loving it, man.
But we're talking about fall color maple pairings. What you got?
All right, man. So, I literally had to kind of walk my garden in my head and think about, okay, so what was some of the big pairings that I was trying to, match up and think about. There's a spot in my garden that's just every time I think about this spot in my garden, I'm excited because I'm watching these two trees grow and they're starting to fill out, looking nice. I had to go with Acer Oliveranum Hot Blonde, and then we got Acer Seboldianum Shiraya Nasume. Two trees that couldn't be any more different, right? I mean, you got Oliveranum, different species, beautiful golden yellow colors in the spring and summer, and then electric pinks in the fall. And then behind it, so this is out front, and then kind of to the side and behind it, I have the Shiraya Nasume, which we all know and love this cultivar, man, the claw of the dragon.
Right.
This crazy, weird shaped leaf on a Seboldianum is totally wild, but then the fall color, man, it gets these crazy oranges and reds. And I just think the textures and colors on those two together and they're both going to get a good size too, so they'll have a nice big splash in my garden. I'm excited about it, man.
Well, I had to laugh. I see your list, and Sume. I saw Corbin go home with one yesterday, and I'm like, Corbin was out in the greenhouses with Brian. I wonder, I'm like, the influence is rubbing off, because I'm like, good choice, because when I saw it, I was like, good choice.
We all are really good influences on each other around here. It's like we're
enablers.
Yeah, we are definitely.
We're enablers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So y'all out there don't get on us. You know what? I think my pairings, I had to steal yours.
Okay.
Hot blonde. Man.
Dude, doesn't get much better, bro.
Dude, man, I know you picked hot blonde. I'm like, man, I got to pair it. But I'm going to pair that with my Acer Shirasawanum Bronze Age.
Ooh.
Because, man, Bronze Age, man, when you go to that, it's an intense yellow. Mm-hmm. And then that hot blonde going to that intense red, and having that red and yellow play off of each other, I think is just an intense, man, if you throw that in your landscape and you got them nearby, and I almost kind of think kind of in the mid background area, and have those colors as your backdrop, you can't ask for anything better.
Dude, that's a stellar pairing, man. That's just like, I like just thinking about the kind of contradiction of those two plants, but working so well together.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You have that Matsumure style Shirasawanum hybrid, crazy pinks and reds with these yellow veinings in the spring, right?
Yes.
And then you got hot blonde is like throwing this crazy wild yellows, and so yeah, that's a super, super great pairing. I love playing around with that, man. Contrast for me is like one of the biggest, like in my mind when I'm laying out my garden, it's like one of the biggest things. And it's not just color, but it's texture and growth habit and all of those things. They play off of each other so well. And it makes a garden, like it draws you to different places in the garden. And it just kind of keeps your interest as you're walking through, because you're like, man, look at this color and this texture. And then you walk a little further.
You can create rooms.
Yeah.
Like in a sense, when I say room, like not necessarily four walls,
right.
But you can turn your whole property almost into like its own room that draws you into different areas, because those different colors and textures and growth habits, you don't want something to camouflage in. You want to see it. And when it pops, that's that drawing in. That's that moving through, creating that feeling like you're in a room, you're in a place, not just standing looking at a plant.
Yeah. I love it, man. Great pairing on that. All right. So next category here. This is one that I was really thinking, right now in my garden, like what's in my conifer collection. I've got a nice little conifer collection going on. I'm in a much more forgiving climate here in North Carolina than Oklahoma. So I'm trying my hand a lot more in these conifers. I'm getting a little braver and trying a lot of these conifers. But I'll tell you, I had to bring this one up because this is one that I found recently. And it's a newer introduction. I don't think it's out there that much right now. And this was an introduction by Bob Fincham called Catherine's Golden Heart. This is a golden Norway spruce. And I'm telling you, the golden yellow on it right now is just extraordinary. And this is a small plant. I think it was like a 3-gallon size that I got. But extraordinary color. But on top of that, what I loved about it was earlier this year, kind of late spring, you had these big, beautiful purple cones that came over top of that bright yellow. So again, we're talking about, contrast, but I love that. And I was thinking, what's standing out right now at this time of the year in my garden, and my Catherine's Golden Heart, that golden spruce is looking pretty sweet, man.
And especially in fall, kind of stand out in the fall, especially in the fall, man, like those cooler temps are really cause that yellow to get even, pop even more, which is, just amazing. So I had to go on, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to, okay, so don't, you can leave in the comments, be like, Sean, you're freaking crazy. How did you, this is supposed to be conifer stands out in the fall.
Right. Are you about to stir the pot, Sean? Are you stirring the pot?
I don't think I'm stirring the pot because, technically, ginkgos are categorized into the conifer world. So I'm going to, like say some of you are like picking a ginkgo for a conifer. Oh,
there you go.
I realize, but technically it's part of that world and stands out in the fall. Man, golden globe and it being a ginkgo in the fall, man, those intense yellows that ginkgos go to, man, is unbelievable. And a lot of times, there are cultivars, we mentioned before Bronze Age, and then, you can get into Nanyat that go to those yellows. Right. But for the most part, a lot of the maples go to reds and oranges and some colors of yellow. But, but
they're very, very true that are just like a pure straight yellow, right?
And with a ginkgo, man, you're guaranteed that pure straight yellow in the fall. So I had to go with Golden Globe. Gets that globular shape. It's not huge, so you can put it into small spots in your garden. Even makes a great container, plant. Right. So man, to me, I get it. It's a ginkgo. We're talking conifers, but it's part of that world. So I'm going to count it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think for me personally, I think ginkgos have always kind of captivated me with the idea of having a prehistoric plant in my garden. I love that. I mean, I think there's just little things like that, like we've talked about this before, like Dawn redwoods, and there's certain plants that just have such a prestige and have stood the test of time. It's man, you have to have one of those in your collection. It's how can you have a garden without at least a ginkgo or at least some of those old prehistoric plants. Right. I love it, man. They deserve a spot. And you're right, man. The consistency of fall color on that. I mean, nothing else looks like a ginkgo. Those ginkgo leaves are so identifiable. I mean, you walk past a ginkgo. If you know plants, you're that's a ginkgo tree. It doesn't take much to realize that, especially in the fall, because I mean, I remember we went to Hopewood Gardens and did a little tour out there, and he had some huge ginkgos lined up on his property, and they were all in perfect fall color. And you got to see that yellow rain coming down out of those trees when they were dropping. Absolutely magical experience. Honestly, it's something I'll never forget. Just the grand experience that was. And I think ginkgos just kind of give you a little bit of that, extra something.
Yeah, and if you got maples and conifers in your garden, you got to have a ginkgo.
Got to have a ginkgo, man.
So our next category, which I love this category because a lot of times as collectors and as gardeners, we talk about the foliage, we talk about the colors of the foliage, but this next category, best shape out of leaf.
Right.
Sometimes, you're just looking at sticks. Hey, man, but those have characteristics and can bring great value to the garden, especially during those winter months when they're not in leaf. Structure matters. So what'd you go with?
All right. I had to go with kind of a tried and true for that. I mean, I've had experience of growing this plant a couple different times in my garden, so very familiar with it. And one that always gives me a great shape, right? And this is Acer palmatum ornatum, one of my favorite lace leaf Japanese maples. Has a beautiful dark burgundy leaf with a bright green bark. So you kind of get some bark interest there on a lace leaf. But that shape, man, it's just so intricate and so ornamental, the way it just hooks and sweeps and mounds and cascades together. I always get a little bit sad at the end of fall, right? When things are, it's oh man, there's no more, but then there's a few of those plants out there that I'm like, ooh, look at that shape. You know what I mean? And the show's not over. Ornatum for me is always kind of still carrying my heart into the winter because it's just got such an amazing structure. I've got one in a nice pot. I've got it set out in my main garden out by my gazebo, so I can see it above my deck there, and it's just got such a perfect shape to it. I'm looking forward to watching it go into fall color and then go dormant, really highlight that shape.
So for me, I had to stay in that conifer world, and I'm going with, to me, there's something about a deciduous conifer.
Yeah.
That it brings a whole new level, and I'm going with Jade Prince. And you talk about that cork interest or the bark interest, that there's a bark interest, but also just that shape of a redwood out of leaf. It's that same kind of feeling you talk about that carries you over. There's still something happening, even though it's lost all its foliage.
Right.
Man, just the colors, the texture of it, man, it carries you through. And then you also have that anticipation, excitement that once you do get through that, man, you're going to get that new flush in spring, dude. I mean, to me, Jade Prince is, and any of the trees in that world, any of those redwoods, man, or even if you get into some of those bald cypresses and stuff like that, any of those trees, man, they bring such a out of leaf interest just from the bark, just from those colors, just from those shapes. Yeah, that kind of carry, like you said, I like that, carry you through to that next anticipation of spring that will eventually come.
Exactly, man. And redwoods are just that, man. Early on in my kind of exploration into plants, one of my good friends growing up was into gardening, a big influence on me, and he had a Dawn redwood collection. He had a lot of the different varieties, like Amber Glow and and all of these different varieties. And he had one that was just a standard Metasequoia, and Dawn redwood in his backyard, and this thing was getting good size, right? And I'll tell you what's super interesting to me about redwoods is the way the branches come off of the trunk of the tree. It almost like kind of caves in and creates this like weird crease in the trunk. Right. And so like I always tell people, if you're doing a Dawn redwood, let the branches grow down low, because the way they come off that trunk and how it kind of deforms that trunk, and then you get that like exfoliating bark a little bit. Like, dude, it looks so wild, man. It looks so cool. I remember every time I'd go out that way, I'd go by my buddy's house and be like, man, let's go check out the Dawn redwood, see how it's doing. Go back there and just stand in awe of it. That thing was about 40 feet tall, big fat base on it. I just love that tree, and it just got me excited. And Jade Prince, I mean, that thing gets huge, dude. We're talking like 70 feet tall, 25 feet wide. So you need some space for that thing.
You do.
You definitely need a big garden. But
it can create shade.
Yeah.
For your other plants, I'd always try to think as, we talk about color, texture, and placement of plants in gardens. Man, everybody needs a good shade tree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. So we're going to move right along here. Let's talk about, now we may have hit this before, but let's talk about it again here. I got most anticipated plant for fall color, right? So I'm kind of looking through my collection. I'm like, man, what am I really getting excited about that I haven't seen like go into fall color yet? Like some newer things that I've kind of added over this last year. And one of them is Acer palmatum Suriname for me. Now, this is an old cultivar, 1700s list, right? Been around forever, stood the test of time. Kind of loosely translates to that light wave, where the way the light plays through the leaves. Crazy fall colors on this thing. We're talking like these bright oranges and reds, little splotches of yellows throughout. It's a crazy plant. I love the texture on it. It has that Matsumura style leaf, so it just plays on texture and color. One of my favorites.
This tree is one of those that, like we talk about other ones, conditional, get this conditional. Man, this is one that I've seen growing from one coast to the other coast in different types of environments. And you mentioned that 1700s list, but man, this is one of those most surefire Japanese maples, I think, that like, what it's going to do in the spring, you know what it's going to do in the summer, and you know what it's going to do in the fall. And it is one of the, you always think, man, that's a sure bet.
That's right, man.
And Suriname, that's one of those Japanese maples.
Stood the test of time.
It's a sure bet.
That's right, man. That's right. What'd you pick on this list?
So last Collector's Corner we did, a similar topic came up.
Right.
And I'm going with the exact same one. I can't change. I mean, is Indian Summer. I mean, it's what it's. We could talk about the big leaves. Yeah, we could talk about that it's an Acer japonicum. and the presence that it brings the rest of the year. But it's not called, it's called Indian summer for a reason,
right.
and that's that fall color. So we're talking about it. So, I mean, I can't change that. Indian summer is still my most anticipated for fall.
Well, man, you'll get no grief from me, bro. This is like one of my favorite japonicums too, man. I have 2 of them in my garden. I know you have one as well. I have 2 of them in mine. I have these planted out front, as paired together out front of my house. And so, yeah, for me too, like, I'm imagining in my mind, just as these start to get bigger. Mine are starting to get decent size. You're looking around 5 feet probably right now, both of them. Matching up, looking nice, going to fill out well there. But that fall color, man, like it's such an anticipation, like the perfect topic for that cultivar, because I think, we've all been kind of struck by that plant here at the farm. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's really like impacted a lot of people just understanding just how dynamic some of the fall colors are on these plants. I mean, it's just extraordinary. It'll take you back. It'll just catch you in a moment where you're just blown away that this plant could do something this extraordinary, and I love telling people, go check out the fall pictures of Indian summer.
It's true though.
It's like true. It has every color of fall color you can imagine, all on the same plant at the same time. It's insane.
Well, I mean, I know you've brought up this story about when we had all those Indian summer and but I was out there with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just remember us standing there at the doorway and our jaws just on the ground, just like, holy cow, this entire greenhouse is just lit up. Because like, having so many of them side by side, but all of them going into that perfect Indian summer, fall at the same time.
Right.
We're just like, is this possible?
Yeah.
Like, because I remember we were joking. We're like, hey, Matt and Tim, can we move our desk into here? Like, this, I want this greenhouse to be my office right now.
Right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, holy cannoli. And I think ever since then, all of us are just like, dude, I've got to get that into my landscape.
Yeah, I love that, man. I remember too, like, I think we went and found Matt. We're like, Matt, dude, we got to go shoot a video in front. I think there's a video. If you guys should go to the MrMaple Show, check that out. I think we did a video where Matt was standing in front of that huge set of Indian summer and perfect fall color. It was amazing. You guys will love that. Go check that out. But like I said, I think it's cool that plants have such an impact like that. It changes people. It kind of gets into your heart a little bit. And so now you always kind of have a special place in your heart because of those different experiences. Great segue here to moving into a non-maple, but still some fall color, right? So
yeah.
Does that happen? Does that happen? Like, I mean, we're so focused on maples, for fall color. We all know they're great performers, but man, there's a lot of other plants out there that got some killer fall color. And what'd you pick on your list, Sean?
So I have to, and I know if you've watched some of the past videos I've been in, we talk about this plant, and I know I bring it up. But man, non-maple fall color, little honey.
Oh,
hydrangea, oak leaf hydrangea, little honey. Man, I know you might think I'm crazy, but man, every year, consistently, little honey, because it has that the leaves are thicker. They're not as thin. They're a little thicker. But because of that, man, there has not been a season since I've had it in my landscape that it has not competed just as well, if not better than some of the Japanese maples I have out there, better than some of the native plants that are out there. Man, little honey every year when it comes to fall color impresses me. Different color reds going on and oranges. And man, if you want some fall color, don't underestimate little honey.
Dude, that's one that you've been really talking to me a lot about, and I it's one that's on my list. I definitely need to get a little honey for my collection. I love that plant. We're talking about a dwarf oak leaf hydrangea. A lot of those oak leaf hydrangeas get gigantic. So if you have a smaller space, it's perfect for that. Golden, yellow, spring and summer colors.
Flowering.
I mean, like, it's such an all around great plant. But then, like you said, like that fall color on it, it's just extraordinary, man. You don't really typically think of like hydrangeas for fall color. Now, most of them do have a fall color, but Little Honey takes it to the next level,
and it
man.
lasts. I mean, I've seen it where sometimes where we finally get that final, like cold enough to push fall to everything to finally fall.
Right.
Or to defoliate from the tree. Man, whereas Little Honey, man, I consider, man, you know what? I still got fall color and it's January.
Right. That's nice, dude. Yeah, those big leaves, like, and they're like super thick. Like, they almost feel like leather, you know, like you said. So they do stand well deep into the seasons on that. But I just think that's a great plant, man. One I'm looking forward to add to my collection too. I appreciate you bringing that continuously to my attention because I need to get a Little Honey, man. For me, so this was like we were talking about earlier, like experiences that like always kind of like bring a tree to your mind. You know, after I had an experience with this next tree, so I'm talking about Zelkova serrata goshiki, which is a variegated form of a Zelkova. It's phenomenal, and I only had room in my garden for one shade tree. Right, the rest of the stuff is going to be smaller maples, right? Conifers, things like that. But I was like, I need one shade tree on the other side of my, just to give some afternoon protection from the sun. And I planted this because of my experience I had at Plants Delight. I went to Raleigh, took a trip there with Matt and Tim. I think we did the Maple Society meeting that year. Went and toured a bunch of different.
Met Tony.
Yeah, met Tony and did a bunch of garden tours, and we went to Plants Delight. Dude, he had a mature like specimen of this. And,
I know which one you're talking about.
And it's huge. And what I love about this particular variegated plant is most variegated plants, once they get above your eyesight, you kind of lose the variegation after a while, right? You can't really see the leaf from above. Whereas with goshiki, even though you're looking underneath the tree, you still see the variegation. That white border around that green leaf just lights up and glows in the sunlight. It's wild, man. It really does make that whole tree just kind of glow the way the light penetrates through that white border. Absolutely crazy. And then the transition into fall color with this plant is extraordinary as well. You get these crazy blushes of like this light yellow, and then the border still stays white. So you have this yellow fall color with a white border. It's wild. It's a unique plant. Probably not one that's like super common in most people's landscape, but a good plant, I think, for like a lot of reasons. Good variegation, good fall color, and if you need a shade tree, excellent plant for that.
Well, I think overall, just Zelkovas are underrated.
Yeah,
in landscapes. You know, I don't think it's as commonly used. You know, I was talking to someone the other day talking about, you know, when you do landscape design, that you take an account for, you know, what's your environment, what can handle, what can, you know, all those things so you can have a successful garden. And you know what? I think there's a lot of people that overlook Zelkovas in the landscape.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a particular reason why. Maybe, you know, some people just prefer other stuff, but I think just overall, it is really just an underutilized, fascinating tree.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with that. All right, guys, we're going to move right along here to the next category. We're going to talk about some pairings. We love to pair things together. We're going to talk about pairing maples and conifers. So a couple of, a maple and a conifer that really stand out to us. What do you got on your list, Sean?
So I had to go with, and we talk about it a lot here at MrMaple, talking about using those coral barks, pairing it with a conifer. So that's the kind of the thought I was thinking of. Yeah. But I had to go with Bihu as my maple. Man, yellow is getting utilized way more in the landscape, which is good. I mean, I get it. Back in the day, people associated yellow with something that's dying or not healthy. And I think that more and more people realize that yellow is a characteristic that can be promoted or cultivated with certain stuff, and that yellow from a Bihu, and then I'm going to match it up with a Hoop CI, which is a Colorado blue spruce.
Yeah, man.
So you get that blue. So a lot of times we talk about putting that coral bark in front of that conifer, and a lot of times it's that red or that orange, but man, throwing that yellow in front of that blue, I think just really will lighten up that space, whatever space you have it in. And with Hoop CI, it's one of those that's not going to get too big, but will get big enough that you could put something in front of it, pair it up with that you're going to get that contrast.
Yeah, man, I love that pairing, man. That's such a great contrast. That kind of that prickly look that you get with that spruce,
right,
and you with that maple, and you have the bark interest, that blue color you get with the blue spruce, man, it's just extraordinary. You can't really get that with maples. You have to kind of dive into the conifer world to get into those blues and kind of grays and those different colors spectrums that you don't get with maples. And I love that about conifers. For me, I did something very similar with yours, but I was playing off of fall color, kind of a pairing a fall color maple with a conifer. So I did Bronze Age. We talked about Bronze Age.
See, it's that yellow against that.
It's that yellow, and then I did a Vanderwolf's Pyramid. This is a beautiful, beautiful blue pine, very narrow kind of pyramidal shape to it. And I have these two paired together out in my garden, and I'm kind of getting excited as they're starting to fill out. That Vanderwolf's is really taking off. It's just got such a crazy frosted blue color. The needles just kind of like alternate, so you see a little frost and you see the blue, a little frost and the blue. So it's like it plays off its color really well. And then when Bronze Age goes to its spring or fall color, man, light up that yellow next to that blue. I think it's going to really pop there, and gets me excited thinking about how my garden is starting to develop and how things are really playing off each other. It's good to step back and feel like, I think I did that right. That looks really good, instead of like, oh man, I'm going to have to change this. But no, I get excited about the pairings in my garden for sure.
Well, that Vanderwolf's Pyramid, I think it's a great name with that name Pyramid.
Right.
Because to be honest with you, the first time I saw that, you talk about the different colors and all that stuff, but the thing that stood out to me, the very first thing that stood out to me is like, man, that growth habit is, and like the name Pyramid, like the way it grows, man, is so accurate. But like, that's actually like, when I seen, just the first thing was that growth habit that I noticed. I'm like, man, that is so unique.
Yeah.
And that is so special. The way it grows, its habit. And then you throw in the colors. Right. And then you throw it in with a Bronze Age contrasting with it. I mean, just absolutely awesome.
Right. Hard to lose with that, right? All right, guys. So moving along here, we were kind of thinking about like, what are some new things that we've added to our garden that we're excited about? And so I'll jump right into it, man. I recently just got this. I've got the blues, nice Picea.
Oh, it's beautiful too.
Beautiful.
Oh man,
it's got such a great shape to it. I love those blue spruce, man. And this is a weeping form of that. So absolutely amazing form and shape. And what I love about like some of those weeping ones is that each one of them creates a different shape. And this one has a very unique low kind of skirt to it, and then it's been staked and kind of hanging up tall and weeping over. It just looks perfect right now, and I'm so excited to be able to add that to my garden. I needed some nice blues. I talked earlier about my Catherine's Golden Heart, bright yellows, but I need some blues, man. I need to get in there and nothing better than the blues, right?
The blues.
And I love playing the blues too, singing the blues. I like everything about it. So what a great tree. I'm excited about having it in my collection.
Well, so when I saw this and I saw you had the blues down, I laughed. I had to laugh because my immediate thought was when, you and Francis came over, we're hanging out, and Daryl, she's in the office over there, but Daryl, my wife, goes, "Oh, Brian, like that's such a beautiful tree you just bought, the blues." And Francis, like, "What are you talking about?
What tree?
What tree?" That's a beautiful. That made me laugh.
I can't slip one by here. I'll tell you, my wife knows me all too well. And so, yeah, it might have caught her off guard, but she wasn't surprised.
And she wasn't upset. She's like, oh, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. She's a huge enabler for me. And we joke about it all the time. She's like, what plant did you bring home this week that you haven't shown me?
Right.
Well, I'll show you now. It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, usually. That's
right. That's right. You're a wise man. You've been married for a while now.
I've been married for, a while.
So I had to go with Chairman.
Nice.
Man, this is one of those conifers that first time exposed to it, I was like, something really fascinating about that. There's something really cool about that. And when we, our last open house, we had those 3 gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallon, I forget, man. But it was starting to really show off even at that size. And they're not huge trees, or they're slow growing.
Right.
But the kind of that cathedral action going on with them. And I'm like, man, this is just, intense. But I remember going up to Vancouver when it was Maple Society. It was the post tour up in Vancouver. We went to go see the Indiana Jones of Japanese or plant discovery. Went to go visit him up there.
Mr. Douglas Justice.
Yeah, if you guys check out that podcast, dude, the Indiana Jones
one
of
the coolest dudes I've ever met, man.
So
like
cool.
I went to Maple Society and got to just ride around and like walk the gardens with him. We stayed close because I just wanted to hear him talk about plants. He was such a intelligent dude and just like so much fun to learn things from. But you got to see a chairman up there.
But up there, we had a chance to see several of them that have been in the ground, well established, and yes, slow growers. But man, seeing one that was, 15 to 20 foot tall,
right,
and the width that it put on, and the different, cathedral action going on, like it was just such an intense presence in the garden. You saw it, you knew it, and man, to the stuff that they had around it just played off of it, and I was just like, man, that is just such a cool tree.
Man, I love it, dude. I love plants like that just create unique shapes. I have a smaller chairman in my garden, and I put it there with the envision of needing some vertical interest in that spot. And so it's looking really nice. Like I said, it's a smaller size now, slow grower, but it'll take some time to fill out. But man, it really does kind of create so many unique shapes to it, because it just shoots these little cathedrals up. You're talking about these tall little vertical interest, and then sometimes it'll shoot a little side branch out, right, and then curl back up. It's like it's got so many great characteristics to it to love. And I have this one actually, and I'll tell you this because this is kind of a cool pairing that I have with my chairman. I have a General Pulaski.
Oh yeah.
So I have like two kind of what I'm called flagpoles, basically, right, in a section of my garden. I have the chairman on one side and then a General Pulaski on the other. And it's going to be cool to watch those kind of get that vertical interest and these tall pillars, and
the two of them, the texture on the General Pulaski compared to that, like so worlds
you got
apart,
that, like curly
awesome
English oak leaf, and then that weird conifer texture that you get on the chairman. It's a cool
I always laugh whenever General Pulaski comes up and people are like, which one's that? And people are like, the one that looks like cabbage.
Yeah.
And the people are like, oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one. All right, Sean, we're going to move here. So the next category we were going to talk about was a newly added maple. So we just talked about a new conifer that we added to our collection, and now we're going to get into a new maple. What do you got on your list?
So this one, newly added, well, how newly?
Yeah, I mean, it's relative to, yeah.
So, but it's the newest one. It's the newest one that came home.
There you go.
Outside of the ones that either Daryl or Noah brought home, right?
Yeah.
But it was actually a gift from you, and because I was like, man, have you seen?
Yeah.
Like, man, like, holy cow! And you're like, hey, man, I got you something. Is filigree.
Oh yeah.
And I won't lie, for the longest time, like with filigree, I would walk around and go through the houses, and I'd be like, oh, another lace leaf. I know it's supposed to be variegated, but every time I go through,
right.
Not overly impressed. It's cool, but not overly impressed. Right. Well, man, this year going through the greenhouses, and I came upon the set, and I was like, holy cow. I've been an idiot. I haven't been paying attention.
Right.
So like right now we're talking about newly added and we're in fall, but like come spring, if you like, or right before spring, if we do a collector's corner and you say, we had the, most anticipated fall. Well, if we're doing a spring collector's corner and you said most anticipated going into spring, I'm going to pick filigree, man. I finally paid attention going through the house and I came across it. And in that early spring flush out, once it kind of gets through that flush, but that early part of spring, man, the variegation on a lace leaf, it is so intense. It is so awesome. And I was just like, after that, I was like, dude.
Yeah.
Because I even told you, I'm like, man, I got to get me one of these. And then you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, hey, Sean, I found this one.
Yeah.
And it had like the perfect low graph with the perfect habit. And you're like, I found this one. And I was like, oh, I got to get it. And he's like, oh, I already bought it. It's yours. And I was like, oh, my goodness.
Dude, yeah, I was excited, man. We started talking that when I found this nice. It just had such a great structure. And it made me think, I was like, I got to hook this up for Sean, man. Yeah, what a cool, like, I love reticulated Japanese maples. And then when you kind of break the barriers and you get into those lace leaves with reticulation, it's super wild. This one has this bright white. Like if you put it in the right condition, give it some afternoon protection from the sun, this thing can really, really show you some depth that a lace leaf typically doesn't give you,
right.
With those kind of multiple layers in that leaf, seeing the veining underneath. Then you get some really nice yellows and oranges fall color on it too. So it's like, it's like, that classic green lace leaf, but then like taking it all up,
turning it up
to another notch. Really cool choice, man. I love filigree. And I was glad to be able to find you a nice one.
Well, thank
bro.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man.
What'd you pick?
So, man, this is one that had been on my list to duplicate. So, like, I always think about my garden back in Oklahoma. I talk about it all the time, but it's because I miss it, bro. It was like such a great experience. I learned so much growing and planting back then. And but there's certain cultivars that I had back then that I'm like, I got to get that again. It was like such a great performer. And it says a lot. If I'm willing to go down that road again with a cultivar, it really meant a lot to me, and I had a great experience with it. And so my choice was Mikazuki, Acer Palmatum Mikazuki.
Great choice.
I absolutely love that maple, man. I had a good size one back in Oklahoma. Just crazy colors. I like to tuck this one back into a little bit more shade because like you get some really funky colors in the shade. You get these like weird, like almost kind of like burgundy browns,
right.
And like with this dark veining, these weird, like really light pink blushes over top, really odd colors, a little more shade you give it. But just coolest leaf shape too. Like when I get into the reticulated types of Japanese maples, we all know the Ghost series and there's so many great options out there, but I think Mikazuki kind of, just takes it to another place that for me is just like so familiar and such a great experience with that tree. I had to add it again to my collection. So that was the one I had to pick.
And I think it's one of those that like, again, we talk about, but you talk about that reticulation. I think it's a underrated reticulated tree. I don't think enough people really, utilize it or take advantage of it. But man, from what I understand is, man, like this tree has been around for a minute.
Yeah.
But, everybody likes that super, super flashy that I think it kind of got pushed off to the side. And I think it took some time to finally get out there. But man, like when we were up at, when we were up in Portland and we stopped off at Anton Clemens' place, man, he had that Mikazuki up towards the side of his house, so well placed with those conifers next to it, playing off of that reticulation, talking about those colors you were talking about, like playing off of that, dude, man, like you cite Mikazuki, dude,
right,
with some of that contrasting stuff, dude, it pops even more. Great, fascinating tree.
All right, guys, we've made it this point. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We've got a little list of plants we've been chopping it up with. But our last on the list here, let's end it with something a little bit different. What's a unique flowering plant, that has kind of caught our attention lately that we need to kind of let people know about? So what's on your list, Sean?
So unique flowering plant, I had to go with azalea lemonade.
Nice.
And the reason I do that is, in the azalea world, we're talking about flowering plant. In the azalea world, there's certain colors of the flowers that, draw us in, but there's certain ones that are way more common.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that the oranges and the yellows are the hardest to come by or hardest to find. And man, that azalea lemonade, the yellow on it and the consistency of that yellow is to me like no other yellow flowering plant in the landscape. And I had to go with lemonade. I'm also excited is because I have one that's not lemonade, but very similar to lemonade that when we were down going to Texas, we stopped off in Alabama, and Martin Vandergeesen said, "Hey, you go in there." It was his evaluation greenhouse.
Right.
Pick you guys out one. And so I've got one at home that is very similar to lemonade, but he was evaluating. But man, taking those and putting lemonade and that one side by side, but the yellows that they put off on those flowers, man, like nothing else.
Yeah, I love azaleas. I think they're just such a great plant for the landscape, and they provide such a contrast for all of your other plants in your garden, your conifers, your maples, just such a complimentary plant. And with those bright blooms, I love that with lemonade, man. It's just such a bright yellow. And then even as it matures out, it gets a little bit of like this really kind of a light yellow but then there's like a bright yellow blotch in the center of that bloom. So it's just really nice aromy azalea. Mm-hmm. What a great choice. I'm getting into the azaleas too. I've got several different colors. And I think lemonade, man, you got it on my radar. Now I need to maybe think about adding that to my colors.
Well, I mean, you think about azaleas, man, like how often do we see, we'll see red or we'll see the pinks or the
whites and
whites. And it's like some of those you're not going to get unless you start getting into some of the, other types of azalea, because I don't want to
hybrids and things.
So like that, once you kind of get outside the realm of some of these big box store azaleas that are common, I don't want to call anybody out, but once you and there's nothing wrong with them, but once you kind of get outside of that and you start getting into some of these other azaleas, you start getting into colors and leaf structures that you can really play off of everything else in the garden and will provide certain colors that you're not going to get out of other plants.
Yeah, I mean, azaleas are cool, man. You can get into collecting those. I mean, you kind of go down the same rabbit hole like with maples. Every bloom color you can think of and different growth habits.
And you guys went to go see all the native ones on top of the bulbs.
Yeah,
you did those several bulb trips and like...
Dude, let's plug that for a sec. If you guys haven't got a chance, man, go check out like our Gregory Bald trip, Waya Bald. Some of those were some of my favorite trips that we had. We went and checked out a bunch of native azaleas up in the mountains here in western North Carolina. It was a grand adventure. We did a lot of shooting and video of our experiences out there, and it's a fun time. You guys go check that out, the MrMaple Show on YouTube. We got some cool videos on that. For me, I had to go with a plant that's just been kind of impressing me this year. I went with Pink Pinnacle. Now, Pink Pinnacle is a pink flowering vitex. Mm-hmm. It gives you kind of similar vibes of like what you would think of like a butterfly bush, but it's not a butterfly bush. And butterfly bushes can be very invasive in certain areas. I tend to steer a little bit away from butterfly bushes, but I like the vitex. It gives you that vibe, but it also has a unique leaf to it. The leaf almost looks like a maple leaf. It's like almost looks like a Matsumura style maple leaf, but it's a vitex plant. And then these big, tall, pink blooms that come off of this thing. And what really caught my attention this year was, and me and Corbin had to talk about this, but it was like when you start planting things in your garden that the natural world around you starts to interact with,
right,
then you know you're doing something cool. You know you're doing something right.
Right.
When I put this in my garden, immediately, as soon as it started to bloom, I had every kind of bee you could possibly, I mean, small little sweat bees to the little honeybees to the big bumblebees, even some of the wasps and ants, and like every pollinator you could think of was so drawn to that plant. And I just love that, man. I love how something I create and put into this garden has now created this like inviting environment for everything around it. So Pink Pinnacle right now still blooming this time of the year, still got bees all over it.
That's awesome.
I love that plant, man. It gets me excited about it. We got it planted next to our vegetable garden, so it's kind of helping pollinate all of our vegetables. Really cool plant, great flowering shrub for anybody who's looking for a nice flowering tree for your garden.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking of, is that, you said it, pollinator, but man, what's really cool about that one is that you get into it, and you've been to my house. I love pollinating. I have a specific pollinator garden.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of it, is to bring in that world and hummingbirds and butterflies.
Yeah.
But man, Pink Pinnacle is one of those. It's a late season pollinator as well.
Yeah.
When some of these other flowering plants no longer are producing flowers, this is one that holds it a little bit longer, later into the season. Great choice.
Man, we hope you guys have enjoyed this. We just got done here going through our list of the Collector's Corner here. Me and Sean talking about plants that we're excited about. We hope you guys have been enjoying this. Make sure you comment in the comments what plants would kind of fit these categories for you guys. I'm interested to see. Let's hear your Collector's Corner.
Yes.
If you guys had a list of things in these categories, we'd love to see that. If you get post here on the YouTube channel, you can go to Mr. Maple Friends group.
Yes.
Make a big post there. Show us your list, maybe some pictures of some things in your garden. We'd love to see that. It's always fun because, we get to grow the plants and then we ship them off, but then it's like, man, I want to see what happened. I want to see it's growing in your garden. So we'd love for you guys to share your garden collection, some of your favorite plants. And that's what we do here. Me and Sean think about our favorite plants and we talk about it and hang out with you guys and kind of shoot the breeze and see what we come up with.
Hey, we got to say thank you to all of you. This wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for you shopping at MrMaple.com. So from our hearts, we really do appreciate your business. And y'all, take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.